Hey, it's Soul with another video brought to you by the wonderful folks who keep the supply of coffee endlessly flowing. Now, if only the place that sold my favorite coffee actually sold it, but no, their self-serve station, it like closed down, and now they won't do any pre-bagging or grinding, so now I have to... Anyway, hi. We're back to the half-screen format because today we're going to revisit the topic of the level squish, one of the big changes that's going to come alongside the release of World of Warcraft Shadowlands. I'm here to drop some reality in response to the speculation of several weeks back that I did, but that doesn't mean that there's any new design fanfiction that we can dream of now that we have more information to work with. So let's start by building things up. Way back during BlizzCon 2019, the level squish was first revealed. We got a glimpse of Blizzard's vision where we would see 3 leveling phases, a 1 through 10 beginner kind of experience, a 10 through 50 experience that included a kind of choose your expansion adventure, and then a 50 to 60 experience that would represent the most current expansion content, which in this case is Shadowlands. So I theorized that after Shadowlands, it would be moved in a sense from the 50-60 experience to the 10 to 50 experience, and as a result, we would be level squished back to 50 again. And then we would level from 50 to 60 again in a new expansion, which basically meant 60 levels in the World of Warcraft forever. That loop would continue on from expansion to expansion, and that might have some interesting possibilities, but of course, it would also piss off a lot of people and disrupt the feeling of growing inside an MMORPG, so it's no surprise that this particular setup is not going to happen. Aren't you glad that I'm not a WoW dev? Yeah. Part of the foundation of that theory was a concern that I had about leveling from 50 to 60, that we wouldn't learn any new abilities. That would mean if the leveling phase was going to change from 10 to 50 to 10 to 60, Blizzard would have to kind of arbitrarily stretch out what we would get in those levels to fulfill on that promise. That seemed lame, hence, my whole theory. But I overlooked something very important that I didn't realize until the alpha finally went public. Let's use Hammer of Wrath, for example. At the moment in Battle for Azeroth, it's only available for paladins who are spec'd into Retribution. So it deals damage, it's usable when mobs are at 20% or lower health, and while Avenging Wrath is active. In Shadowlands, it's going to be a baseline ability for all paladin specs, woohoo! And learnable at level 43. At least that's how it is in the alpha at the moment. It's usable on mobs at low health, but that's it. It doesn't grow in strength until level 58 during Shadowlands content, when it becomes usable when using Avenging Wrath. So is this like the classic Blizzard play of, take it away and then make it so you have to earn it again? Yeah, sort of. It's also hard to complain about it when it's also baseline once again, although, it was originally baseline anyway, so I guess I'm complaining anyway. But the moral of the story is that ability ranks and unpruning are going to fill this level 50 to 60 gap. And so, here we are. Classes are going to learn or relearn things from 50 to 60, which brings my theory tumbling down like a house of cards. Now sure, the unpruning gave Blizzard the opportunity to have an out, at least this time, but it seems all but certain that when Shadowlands is lumped into the leveling phase a couple of years from now, it's most likely to turn this phase into a 10 to 50 to a 10 to 60 experience, and in the new expansion we would move from level 60 to level 70 or whatever. So great, problem solved, video over, yay! But let's drum up a few small concerns. Not huge ones, but concerns to consider. We'll eventually come to the point where, once again, we need to perform an item level squish. So another surprise from Blizzard in Shadowlands, there is going to be an item level squish coming that's going to bring us from the 400s that we're enjoying right now, all the way down to the low 100s. As far as we know though, we're still running with 4 raid difficulties, so we can expect our item level to go up by like another 200 or so points if Battle for Azeroth is any indicator of how the scaling is going to work, which isn't guaranteed of course, so let's not go charging in quite yet. Another concern is that, as I mentioned earlier, the unpruning of abilities is the primary source that Blizzard tapped into when giving us abilities from levels 50 to 60. After Shadowlands though, what can we expect? More unpruning is a possibility, but that would feel a little bit cheap, right? Like, they would give us a few abilities that we used to have back, every 2 or so years just so they can fill out 10 levels. But Blizzard also tapped into a little something that's a lot more low-key because, well, to be frank, it's really passive, but it might feel good, and I'm talking about ability ranks. The future level 60 to 70 experience doesn't necessarily need to include a brand new flashy button to press. However, ranking up abilities to make them feel shinier and newer and maybe alter the gameplay a little bit, that's more like it. The next little concern is about the leveling phase that theoretically will grow from expansion to expansion, from 10 to 50 to 10 to 60 to 10 to 70 or so. So if it takes a certain number of hours on average to get through this initial leveling phase, and we're going to use a nice round fake number of 20 hours to get through this upcoming 10 to 50 experience, will it still take the same number of hours to get through 10 to 60, 10 to 70, or 10 to 100? Imagine leveling through one zone in Cool Tears or Zandalar however many years from now, and gaining almost 30 levels in that one zone. So in the future, it's not going to be so different from how things are now before any of these fixes, except that now all of these levels are going to mean something, and that might feel a little bit overwhelming. On the other hand, getting through the leveling phase might be somewhat lengthened with respect to the additional levels, but not on a linear or a one-to-one basis. So if it took 20 hours to get from 10 to 50 in Shadowlands, maybe in the future it's going to take 22 hours on average to get from level 10 to level 60 in the future, something like that. But let's move on from the small things. They were worth bringing up, but in my humble but very correct opinion, it's not worth a whole lot of grumbling about. But this is the good old, really old talent system, which has survived any meaningful change since Warlords of Draenor added one more row to it. That was back in 2014, the same year Wildstar was released. So WoW's current talent row system lasted longer than Wildstar, the WoW killer MMO. Whatever the case, this needs to change, in my opinion. This talent row system isn't sustainable post-Shadowlands. Okay, maybe it sort of is, but it's going to be as enjoyable or unenjoyable as it's been post-Shadowlands because, well, we're just going to repeat all the same complaints that we've had for many years now. Even now, I get it when Blizzard doesn't want to feel forced to add rows and rows of talents every expansion out of some principle that there's a new expansion. And I've suggested numerous ideas to change things up, like adding talent columns instead of rows, or revamping everything and creating a Diablo 3 style rune system that would give signature abilities a mini talent tree. I know it sounds complicated, but whatever. Between the level squish and unpruning to make ability ranks a thing again, I feel really strongly that once Shadowlands does go live and the team starts working towards the next expansion systems, the first thing or the top thing on their to-do list should be to retire the talent row and build up something better that can fit this formula here and withstand the addition of expansions. To wrap things up, I'm going to do my typical thing and throw some fanfiction your way, and just let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Let's pretend that the talent row system does, in fact, stay intact. Whoop-de-doo. How about, after Shadowlands, our Covenant abilities, or our choices between Covenant abilities, becomes a series of selections that we can change. So what I'm trying to say is that Shadowlands Covenant abilities will follow us post-expansion and be on a special row, some special selection made up not of 3, but 4 choices based on each Covenant. Maybe something gimmicky can be thrown in there, like maybe you can only change this particular row once a week or something, I don't know. But that would be a pretty neat way to preserve the legacy of Shadowlands while letting our classes grow a little bit, but it sounds pretty fun. It makes some sense here, and only here in Shadowlands, because one of Shadowlands' central features is to give a choice between one of 4 pretty cool class abilities, but they're not exactly class or spec defining abilities. I believe that these abilities on their own are something that you can give and not take away. That's going to be a wrap for me, so let me know what you, person at home or elsewhere, think in a comment below. Do you feel relieved about how the level squish is going to probably go? Maybe you're disappointed that a mid-level endgame is less likely than it already was. Of course, please don't forget to like the video if this was informative and to subscribe for more of this and all things Warcraft. We'll see you next time. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.